Alrighty. Good evening, guys. Welcome to a continuation of Python fundamentals where we're discussing functions, right? In this lesson, we're just going to dive a little bit deeper and into functions in Python, right? So the objectives of this video, right? I just want to show you how in Python, when you create a function, you don't necessarily have to return something. You can just display or cause an effect to happen, right? And I'm also going to speak about the non-type and the function and scope, right? So in the previous video, I showed you how to create, we basically spoke about positional arguments and keyword arguments and how you can combine them. And in those functions that we created, the 1 parameter, 2 parameter, and 3 parameter functions, you could just see that I wasn't really returning anything. I was just printing out to the, and I say I wasn't returning anything as a variable, right? I wasn't storing the results of whatever calculation that we were doing as a variable. I was just printing it out to the terminal or to the screen, right? So remember, just the same, we've seen this flow chart before, or just an explanation of what a function is. You have an input, you pass it into your function, the function manipulates it and then returns it to the user, right? So function effects and results, right? So remember the keyword to return an operation or the result of an operation in Python is when you're using it in a function, you use the return keyword, right? So if you look here below, we have this force. You've seen this, we created this function in the previous video where we calculated the force, giving the mass and acceleration. And now we return the result of this operation, of this calculation, mass times force, right? And we can use that and store it in a variable. Now, return, I highlighted it blue, is a Python keyword. Therefore, you can't use it as a variable name or as a function name. So return without an expression, right? So now here, there's an expression here. Over here, there's not an expression. So the return essentially causes an immediate termination of your function's execution. So look at this one called access control. So if this person is a student, say, well, default value of this is true. And then we say print good day, right? And if not true, right? Okay, let's just, if not true, right, return. So this would, if not a student, so if this person is not a student, then we would exit the function. And then we would now say print welcome blockchain to welcome to blockchain 101 if they were a student, right? So if true, if not false, if not false becomes true, and then this function wouldn't execute. But I can show you this. I'll show you this in a later video. So the instant causes an instant return to the invocation point. So essentially, in your code, it'll just go back to the point of where the code was, where you actually called the function. And sometimes it's executed implicitly if function not intended to produce a result. All right. So return with an expression. So just like before, the return causes immediate termination of the function's execution, and then it evaluates the expression's value and returns it as a result, right? And then we have the non-type, which is a special type of data value that doesn't represent anything. It is not a value, cannot be used in operations, and is essentially used to, you can assign it to a variable as a function result, or sometimes you can even assign it as a parameter, keyword parameter, right? So, and then from there you can do some manipulations with it, right? And then you can compare it with a variable to check its external state. So remember, the non-type is implicitly returned when a function does not return a value. So now if I was to check the type of this, if I created a function and I said print, and I now set type on that function, and then you would see it would be a none, right? Now, function scope essentially is where the code, part of the code is recognizable, right? So if you look here, we have a function called example function, and what is this variable? And we say var, right? And then here, when we're executing we call another variable called var, and then we invoke our function and we print var, right? So what would happen here is now Python, when you invoke the function, Python will now look for this var variable within the function scope. And as you can see there, we did not define it anywhere within the function. Then what it will now do will now look for, if it can find this var outside of the function, then you see it'll be there, and then it will not execute the function. What is the variable? And this would be 1, right? And then it will still print 1 once you get there. So a variable that exists outside of a function has a scope inside the function body. So that means that just like what I just explained, this variable can be seen within the function, all right? Excluding functions that define a variable of the same name. But if I had this var in here, the function would just use the var and not use this. But I'll show you this later in the videos when we're coding. Like, scope of a variable outside of a function is only supported when its value is read, right? And then you have a global keyword. Now this is used to extend the a variable scope, right? So let's say I wanted to, in my function, I wanted to manipulate or modify the value of a function, of a variable that's not within the function. So I can use this keyword global. And then what this would now do is now, and I'll say, I want to modify, essentially what it's saying is, I want to modify the variable in the global scope, right? So, and this variable is in the global scope. That's outside of the function. And then what would happen is I now change it to 2, and here it's 1, but then I invoke the function, and this is, okay, I want to modify this and set it to 2, and this would come out to 2, right? So the key takeaways: return keyword tells us a function to return a value. Is a keyword that tells a function to return a value. The return statement exits a function. Remember, it immediately terminates the function. So anything that you have below it will not execute. Always remember that. Anything below return function will not execute. I think in some IDEs, they will even give you a warning that this is not going to execute because it's below it, unless you put it in like an if else block or something like similar like that. But we'll get back into that later. Result of a function can be assigned to a variable. Any data type can be used as an argument to a function. Any data type can be used as a result of a function, right? Remember that. A variable outside of a function can be used inside a function's body. I showed you that in this video. A variable defined inside a function only has a scope inside the function. The global keyword can be used to modify the scope of a variable. All right, so now let's move on to Visual Studio Code, and we will actually go through some of these functions that we have defined here. See you guys there soon. Cheers. Okay, guys, welcome back. Right, so the first one is this access control that got me a bit trippy on the explanation, but anyway, so let's get into it. So now it was just this, if not, the negation can always be a bit confusing, but let me just explain it to you quickly. So on this slide, right, so I say not true and not false. Those are the two combinations that we're going to get because there's only two, true or false, right? Not true is false. Not false is true, right? So now, now we get into this. Now I'm asking, if is this person not a student, right? If not a student, therefore, and this statement is true, I don't want to say welcome to blockchain. If this person is a student, not true is false, right? So just to repeat that again, I don't think that should be put inside the function, but anyway. So this is the access control function, and it has a default parameter of being true, students, right? So say good day. We're always gonna get good day. We're not rude. So then we're gonna have to do a quick check. If not a student, right? And remember, false. If the person is not a student, you're gonna say false here, right? So if so, it's gonna say not false. Okay, then we're gonna true. Then that means once this equates to true, we are going to get into number 38 and exit the function, right? So we can just say Python and Python funcs 2.py, and I haven't invoked it, so let me just do that now. Access control, and I'm just going to say, actually, I'm not even going to run it. I'm just not going to put anything, and remember, it's going to work because okay. Welcome to blockchain. Remember, default parameter, so I don't have to put anything there. It's already knows that students is going to be true. But what happens if I say false? And that's not how you do false in any programming language. So now we do that again. Let me just remove that and excuse that. I don't know what that is, but okay, let's just ignore these. Ignore that. So you run that again. Good day, and it exits the function. All right. So now let's go to the next one. So the immediate termination of a force, return with an expression. I think we did this just in this one here. I'll just uncomment that, or just copy that and paste that somewhere over here, and uncomment. And instead of this. I'm just going to say return, and no, this is not going to return a tuple. I need to have, and then I can just say wait, and then we're just going to run that. I'm just going to print wait, right? And we're going to run that again, and that is oh, yeah, that's a problem. So we run that again, and as you can see, so that was a tuple. If we just go back there, but we haven't got into tuples. Remember, round brackets with a comma, but we haven't gotten into that. So let's just continue. Okay, so now we have the weight, right, of someone on, but then let's go back to the, actually, remember, we're going to just ignore this and let's see the person's weight. And then you could now use this value. It's a float. You can now use this value. And so we return the result and store it in a variable, and we can continue using it in our program. Okay, the none type. Okay, so I think the none type I can show you here. Access control, and I say print type. Right, false. And I should get it now. And as you can see, it returns a none. Okay. So that's a none type, but how could you use this in a function? Actually, you could. Let's change this. I can say none. And if none, and I could remove this. If none, right? Just exit because you're not a student anyway. And then else, if else, or if student equals to false, return as well. Actually, print, so we can differentiate print, not a student. And then return as well. Else, that's just it. So we only have three options, none, and then there. All right. So I'm going to return this, run this again, and not a student, right? Print good day, not a student. And then if I say true, it should still tell me good day and print welcome to blockchain. Okay, and remember, if I run this, I can still run it like that with nothing. It'll still print good day and just return the none type, right? So you can use the none just for like for conditionals here as well. Okay, now let's get to function scope. And I think the function scope, I will just comment everything out so that there are no clashes. Okay, so we can say define example and example, right? And it says, I'm going to say print, what is this variable? And we're going to put some space there so that, and then bar, right? And you can see saying it's not defined, right? But then I can now call you and say var is equals to 1. And that disappears. Because remember, we said that a variable that exists outside of a function scope can be seen within the function, right? So Python has now looked, okay, there's no var anyhow, but in the function, there's no var in the function. Then I'm going to go outside of the function and look elsewhere in the code, and I see var there. So therefore, okay, cool, let's keep it moving. And then I invoke the function, let's say example, and then I say print var, right? And if I run this, I should still see 1. What is the variable? 1, right? And let's see if I was to change this. No, so that's how it works, right? I was going to say change it, but then yeah, let's just move to this one. Now the global, this is where I can change it. Now I say global, or I can actually say var is equals to 5, just to show you something. And then now, remember on the slide, I say excluding functions that have defined the same variable and same name. So now it's going to see, okay, var, and it's going to use this rather than using this. So it's first going to check for within the function scope. Okay, so I can't find within the function scope. Maybe look outside the function scope, but it found, so it's just going to use that. So if we run that, I should still see 4. What is this variable? 4. And then it will still print 1. But now you can still see it didn't edit this global one. But I can do that by saying global var, right? And then what should happen here is everything will be 4. Let's see. Great, and everything is 4 because I said I want to modify the global variable. Var is 4. So this is just a short little video on function scopes. And in the next video, we will go and do some more exercises on functions. All right, like I said. See you guys there. Cheers.